there, and thank you for joining us for another episode of HomeTech.fm. Jason Griffin here. Happy, as always, to have you with us, and I am joined by my partner, Seth Johnson. Seth, how's it going?
Good, man. Good, man. Any news? Any big news?
No babies yet. We're kind of on pins and needles, though. Yeah, we're right there at the finish line. I can't believe how quickly this the second pregnancy flew by. You know, that first one, which, as we revealed a number of weeks ago, you guys are going through right now. It's a different experience because you're just kind of bracing yourself for that whole lifestyle change and everything that comes with it. It's all good stuff, but really the second time around, you're just so busy taking care of the first one that I just feel like this one totally crept up on me, but we're excited. And how are things going with you and your wife?
Good so far. Yeah, good so far. I mean, we're in week 19, so kind of cruising along, and everybody tells us, just get your sleep now.
Yep.
It's been everybody's advice. Every single person.
Everybody tells you that, but it's like,
yeah.
Well, how much sleep can I possibly get right now?
Right. And I wonder if I sleep a lot right now,
does it help?
How big of adjustment will it be if I don't get any sleep? Like, I may as well just start sleeping 3 hours a night and just get it over with.
Yeah, I always thought that was odd advice. I got that a lot too. So anyways, excited to be presenting this show. We had Steve Hosterman on from Greenlight, and Greenlight's a really cool product. It's another one of these remote monitoring system management platforms that is really taking, I think, a pretty unique angle. There are some things that we touched on in the interview with Steve that, quite frankly, I hadn't realized about Greenlight going into the interview. How natively they're tied into control systems and what that allows for. And I won't elaborate too much on it here, but be sure to stay tuned for the interview. Really enjoyed it, and I thought they're taking a very unique approach to this. And if they're not a company that you're familiar with and you're evaluating different remote monitoring and system management tools, definitely one to take a look at.
Yeah, I would definitely say that if you're an integrator, it's more integrator focused. It's definitely not. Well, I guess they have some things coming out that will be end user focused, but at the end of the day, it's all about servicing clients and making sure that their systems up are going. I can think of a pretty big company that may need Greenlight right now.
Yeah, well, I can think of a couple, but I think the one you want to talk about here, and we're going to kick off a few news stories here with this one, is I guess a fairly large Nest outage. And Seth, I'm going to let you kind of elaborate on this one.
Well, I mean, there's a thing with these connected devices that everybody expects 100% uptime. And when you have a connected device like the Nest, which is a fairly low cost connected device, if you consider what it is and what it does, but the big thing that you don't get with low-cost devices is a big processor. You know, you and I, we install these Control 4 systems and Savant systems. I mean, heck, Savant uses for their processor, I think they still use Mac Minis. So you get these massive horsepower to do local control over systems. And when you get a little device like Nest and stick it on the wall for a point solution, they're not able to have big processors in them. So they have to push everything out to the cloud. And I guess there was an outage. It's for some people not being able to, control their Nest thermostat from their app. And that can be frustrating to say the least, but I think this was a little overblown in the media just because it's kind of one of those times of the year. It's hot everywhere right now, right?
Right.
It is just absolutely scorching out there right now. And if you're not able to remotely pick up your phone and remotely control your Nest or see how things are going on inside the house, that's a problem. And I can completely understand the frustration, but with these internet connected devices, if the server's out online, you won't have remote access.
Right.
You should be able to go out and fiddle with the thing on the wall, but that doesn't help you if you're away from the house.
Yeah, no, and I think that specifically wanted to point out and make sure we make that totally clear that this outage was strictly really tied to the remote control through the app, what have you. You did still have the ability. So if you were in your house and, it's 100 degrees out, it's not like your thermostat has completely ceased functioning at this point. You can still get up and turn the temperature down physically. And so it's just one of those things. I think that I don't want to spend too much time on it because, frankly, I think these stories tend to get people latch onto them and they get over-reported a little bit. I think it's worth noting that yeah, and something we talk about all the time. I mean, if you're buying a connected device and it's a low-cost connected device, then odds are it's probably doing a lot of the thinking in the cloud. And if you lose your network connection, well, you're going to lose some functionality. But I think the important thing is when you're picking devices for your home that you think about that, you're conscious of it. And, smart locks is a great example. I would never buy a smart lock that didn't have the ability to still unlock it with a good old-fashioned key. I just think that having that sort of analog functionality as a backup is really critical. And so at least for this particular outage that we're hearing about from Nest, to me, not that big of a deal. I still have the ability, if I'm at home, to turn the temperature down. In my worst-case scenario, if I'm away from home and the temperature is hot, well, when I get home, I can turn it down and I'll be comfortable in a few minutes. And in the meantime, just have to wait.
Yep, like you said, I don't think it was that big of a deal. But what is a big deal? Vizio, America's favorite TV manufacturing company.
Very big deal. Acquired for $2 billion by a Chinese tech company. And, this is, I think the big takeaway of the story here is that I guess at this point, if I'm thinking about things correctly, I should say, we don't have any American TV manufacturers left, do we?
I can't think of any. I mean, it's not like Vizio was manufacturing here in the States. They were still building overseas, but they were based, I think, out in LA, if I'm not mistaken. I know they're in California, but they were pretty huge. I mean, I wasn't a fan of them, at least in the beginning, where the picture quality and build quality of Vizio's was particularly nasty. And of course, coming from the control side, like, they never had discrete codes at all. But I think in the last couple of years, they have certainly made an effort to beef up their image quality and their picture quality, and especially introduce some really high-end TVs. And on the higher-end TVs, they also had discrete IR codes built into them, so you could finally actually control these things. Yeah,
they got enough complaints, I guess. They finally had to listen. But that was the general consensus with Vizio. I think is when they first came out, it was really a very budget-driven TV, and they always had that element to their business model. They really tried to be an affordable TV, but I think at first, initially at least, they did that, at the expense of quality. And eventually what they did is moved up market and had some nicer models, and I think the technology improved and their economies of scale certainly got better. I mean, they were a very, very successful company. $2 billion being acquired for that is, I think, a clear indication of that. Definitely no small sum, but I don't know. I was reading a story in The Verge, and apparently the CEO, William Wang, who founded the company, the particular article in The Verge that I'm reading said it seemed more like a eulogy than a press conference. And I guess he seemed pretty sad. Said he had mixed feelings about letting the company go. And I'm sure, I mean, you build a business like that, and I'm sure there's a lot of attachment that goes into that. But he said he knew it was the right decision for the employees and the shareholders. And so interpret that whatever way you want. But that's it's official. And Vizio is they're, like I said, a very successful company, and I'm sure they'll continue to do what they do. It's just it's going to be a little bit of a shift.
Yeah. I remember. Do you remember? I was thinking about this when I was reading the story and thinking about, the history of Vizio and the history of video in general. Do you remember when Samsung came in with like super cheap DLP TVs and kind of like disrupted the large format TV? And everybody I know was every one of my clients was like, oh, I've got to have one of those Samsungs. Get me a Samsung. And we were moving away from like the Pioneer and the Mitsubishis. Like they were amazing TVs and had great pictures, but when you looked over at the cheap DLPs that had decent light output and you could see them from different angles, man, it was kind of like, I can't blame you. I mean, you can get a large format TV. It's not a giant box like those old Mitsus were. But
right,
yeah, like this kind of reminds me of that. Like Vizio started off kind of just scraping the bottom of the barrel, so to speak, and here we are, 2016. They're selling for $2 billion. I mean, so good for them.
Good point. Well, let's move on to the next story here, and this is one related to the new Savant remote. And this is a story I think probably most everyone listening to our show will be familiar with. We've certainly talked about it a number of times, and Savant has their new DIY remote, which is officially on sale at Best Buy as of, I think, just a few weeks ago. As a Savant dealer, we've had access to it for a little bit longer than that. But this particular article out of CE Pro was really talking about where is the company headed. I mean, this is a big story for home technology professionals and home technology enthusiasts in general. To see Savant selling a product at Best Buy, like I said a couple of weeks ago, is a bit jarring for me still. It's not, I don't necessarily take it as a bad thing. I just, I've worked with Savant for so long, and to see them in that context is something I'm not used to. And this article is really talking about, well, does this mean that Savant has, I guess, shifted their core focus or maybe lost touch with what got them here, which many people would argue is the dealer base and the professional line of products. And their CEO, William Lynch, is, denying that emphatically and saying that Savant's core focus is still on the professional dealers, and this is a way to provide solutions at the lower end of the market, which will theoretically funnel more business up to local professional integrators. And, I think that remains to be seen. Personally, I fall on the side of the fence, and we've talked about this on the show for years, that this is just the reality. This is where companies are going to have to go if they want to stay relevant. They're going to have to offer products that appeal to a very low end of the market, and then hope that they can get people up market into the more custom solutions. And so I just see it as the reality, and not a good thing or a bad thing, but just something we need to adapt to. And I thought it was an interesting article to see some of those points made.
Yeah, and if you go to the article that we'll link in the show notes, you'll see that I can confirm that Savant is in Best Buy because I'm the one who took the picture.
Yeah. So got a future as a photographer, Seth.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, what it did, I went to Best Buy looking for some headphones for some reason, but I was strolling through and then looked over and was kind of shocked to see Savant sitting there. And I can understand your apprehension to it. Magnolia and Best Buy have been selling Control 4 or have sold Control 4 for a very long time, and I can't say that's significantly had an impact on my business as a dealer. So they were just another dealer in the market that carried the product. I think for Savant it's going to be good for their brand name recognition. I don't know how it will be like selling against the DIY remote, because you're going to be competing with the same product that you have as a dealer. Yeah. And that's kind of a tricky situation to kind of play off of because can you use the remote in your professional products, or is it a separate SKU?
It's a separate SKU. I don't think apprehension is the right word for me. I mean, I'm not apprehensive when I see Savant there. It's just kind of like I said, it's just different. It's just something I have to get used to. I just haven't seen that before. But to your specific question, it is a separate SKU. I mean, the remotes are physically identical. You hold them next to each other, and visibly there's zero difference. The difference inside of their software or firmware, I guess, whatever. And they're separate SKUs. The Savant remote and then the Pro remote, the terminology gets a little confusing. I've also heard the DIY version called the Instant remote, which is kind of what we've standardized on internally at our company. But it's a much more stripped down product in terms of functionality. It is really designed to be a single room AV control solution, TV on the wall, AV receiver, cable box, whatever, what have you, in a credenza below it, and that's about it.
Yeah.
They do have their lamp module that you can tie in with it, which is kind of cool. But that's it. It really does not function in any sort of environment where you've got centralized AV equipment. If you want to tie it in with any Lutron lighting or shades, I mean, there are some pretty clearly, easily defined benefits to going up to the Pro remote. But those only apply for certain customers. And so it really is just very project specific, but pretty easy to spell out the difference. And most clients get it. And which one is going to be the right fit for that project is usually pretty easy to figure out.
Yeah. And I don't know if this is just a huge design miss, but to me, it's confusing because you're telling me that there's there's physically nothing different between the Pro and the we'll just call it the DIY remote. Like, to me, it would be great if, customer A went into Best Buy and found a Savant DIY remote, bought it home, loved it, and wanted to expand their system beyond, the single room control. And then they called a dealer up. Like that to me would be great. But I don't understand why they would kind of make two different SKUs out of it and have one, orphaned off on the side.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, and I suspect that pure speculation. I have no, nothing backing this up. But I wouldn't be surprised to see like a firmware update become available. So if you had a client who had purchased the DIY version and then decided they wanted to upgrade to a Pro system, what you're saying is, and my understanding of it is currently the way it's laid out is that we would have to replace that remote. I doubt it's going to stay like that. I suspect we'll have the ability to upgrade those at some point.
Yeah,
but I've heard conflicting stuff on that, and I frankly just I haven't taken the time. It's a new product to really dig in and figure that out. So we'll see.
With this being in Best Buy, I actually got some hands-on time finally with the Savant remote in a fairly controlled environment. I took a couple videos of it, and people said, "Oh, it's there's a lot of background noise," but really, where I was standing and where this was, there wasn't any more background noise than there would be like in a when I was watching TV, or in a household with people talking in the background and me watching
screaming
TV.
children.
Yeah, screaming children, exactly. I don't know what that's like. But I got a couple videos off of it. I tried the voice control thing. The first one was an absolute failure, and I kind of figured out after a while that I'm supposed to hold down the button, which to me is kind of an interface failure on their part. Like, they should make that a little more. Like with Siri, you hold down the button, she bings at you, you let go. And that's what I was expecting it to work, I pressed down, when I figured out you had to press down and hold down the remote, I think it did a little bit better trying to figure out what I was saying, because it wasn't cutting off before I finished my sentence. And I think I did get it to work. I mean, the videos are kind of funny, but I did eventually get it to work, but it took a little playing with.
Yeah, little getting used to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've got the Pro version at our showroom, and I struggled with the voice control a little bit at first, and I've gotten used to it, and have definitely found the situations that it works well, and the situations where I just don't try, and I'll just use a scene trigger on the touch screen or whatever. And so I think, like anything, it's just getting used to it a little bit. I agree with you. I struggle with the do I push the button and then let go, or do I push it and hold? And I think we've been conditioned by Siri that you push and hold the button, and then the phone kind of vibrates and chimes at you, and you let go, and then you say what you want to say. But with the Savant remote, you got to push and hold while you're giving the command. And so that is a little bit tricky for me as somebody who does use Siri a fair amount. I don't use it a ton, but I do things like voice to text, and I set reminders using voice and stuff. So I have gotten kind of conditioned to doing it a certain way by Siri and the way Apple approaches it. And so, yeah, I think it wouldn't have been a bad idea to take a cue from Apple on that one.
Yeah, and I think that I'm not complaining. This is something that they can fix. Like, if they put this into the store, and they can rev on it. They can go back and say, oh,
Sure.
This doesn't work.
Yeah.
This is something that easily can be fixed, because that's really one of the the only things that I found wrong with it. Like, the remote's actually a pretty good remote. I was actually, like, the touch screen on it looks good. One of the Best Buy employees was walking by and said, can I help you? Which I thought was kind of surprising. But I started talking to him about it. He had actually purchased one, and it was sitting at his house, but he was super excited about using it, and he couldn't wait to get that, set up at his house and working.
Very cool.
Yeah. So I think Savant has a home run with this in the retail space and the DIY space. And they're going to get the feedback from customers, and I'm sure plenty of feedback to go ahead and improve the product. And the Savant DIY remote version 2 is going to be great.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think overall it's a great remote, and I'm anxious to see what they're able to do with it in the long run. Let's move on here. We got a couple of more stories before we're going to jump into our interview with Steve Hosterman of Greenlight. And the next one that we wanted to touch on is CEDIA announced their best new product finalists, and there was a couple of surprising picks in there.
I guess you're talking about Amazon, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got Amazon, Amazon's director of voice. I'm sorry if I'm getting that title wrong, but he's doing a keynote at CEDIA, and if you click on this link that we'll include in the show notes, the CEDIA Award finalists for best new products. Right there, very top of the list, number one, and they're just alphabetical, so don't read too much into that. But, right there at the top of the list, Amazon Echo.
Yeah, and further down the list is Arrow, which is the three-piece Wi-Fi, I don't know what you want to call it, Wi-Fi mesh networking thing that evidently is super easy to set up and deploy into homes. There's a couple of other things, the Lutron Connect Bridge, I think they showed that at the last CEDIA, or at least alluded to it showing up, but I think that's a cool product that basically bridges the older systems like the QS and not older, but the bigger systems like QS and RAW2, and gives them the ability to do HomeKit and all that good stuff. And one of my favorites is on here, the Middle Atlantic DC power distribution. If you're a rack builder like me, you will appreciate what Middle Atlantic has done with this thing. They basically have a couple of ports on there for power, but they also have a couple of ports for low voltage power. So instead of having a ton of wall warts inside of the rack and having to plug them all into their own separate outlets, you cut the ends off, cut the tails off, and run them back to this distribution block and plug into the appropriate voltage, and a lot less outlets you got to worry about.
Yeah, no, I like that. That one's really cool. I see friend of the show, Domots, on here, so that's kind of cool. So yeah, I think there are some interesting products on here, but definitely seeing things like Amazon on there is, I think, speaks to one of our core themes of the show, and Eero, like you mentioned, is another example that the lines are just blurring. They're just continuing to blur between professionally installed technology and do-it-yourself, straight-to-consumer type products, and it's just really, really important to be paying attention to that and figuring out what that means. And I'm sure there's going to be people who look at these product finalists and the trolls are going to come out, no doubt. But I think some people will also have some valid points and concerns about that. I fall on the side of the fence that this is just the reality. It's not a good thing. It's not a bad thing. This is where the industry's going, and let's accept it and figure out how we can continue to add value in spite of it or because of it, I guess, however you want to look at that. But I think it's the reality. So let's just figure it out.
I would suggest anybody going over and take a look at some of the other products on here, because it's all stuff that integrators get really excited about, like that distribution block. That's something that a normal person's not going to get very excited about, but if it exists and it solves a problem, it may work out for somebody, But I do know of one manufacturer that's not on this list.
Right.
I don't see Crestron
Sleeping
anywhere.
Giant.
Yeah. Oh yeah, sleep at the wheel. Crestron's not on there.
Yeah. So yeah, a couple of interesting stories about Crestron and CEDIA, and we're just, I can't say I'm super surprised. The one story that I saw that I wanted to touch on was another story we mentioned a couple of weeks ago. Gentleman runs a blog called strategy.com, strata-ge.com, and I think he gets some great stories. I don't know what his kind of approach to it is, but it wasn't a blog I'd heard a lot about and kind of came across it, and definitely one I'd encourage people to go check out. But he's got a story here titled "Remember when Crestron said they were pulling out of CEDIA?" ? And here we are. It looks like Crestron will actually have some presence at CEDIA. Now, granted, they're not going to have their booth, and that's still, so it's still a big story. Crestron was always front and center at CEDIA, huge footprint. It was one of the main attractions of the show. But it does look like they're going to be there sort of exhibiting with what they're calling some integration partners. And details are sparse on who they're going to be showing with. But this article did mention one, which I thought was very surprising, and that was Sonos. And so I don't know. It doesn't cite a specific source. I don't know if that's 100% confirmed, but thought it was very curious.
to be fair, we've heard the same rumor as well. Like we've heard that Crestron's going to be showing off in the Sonos booth through our sources. But I don't really think this is too revolutionary, considering the other article that came out just about the same time over at CE Pro, where Julie Jacobson interviewed John Clancy about Crestron being at CEDIA. And one of the quotes, besides the sleeping at the wheel giant, which I think is just a huge mistake. But one of the things that they brought up in the article here, I thought was very eye-opening to me. And this is John Clancy. He used to be a big-time AV integrator up in the Northeast somewhere. I've heard his name, and I've seen him in the industry before. But what he did is he called up Randy Klein, the CEO of Crestron, and asked him, why in the world are you guys leaving CEDIA? You're appearing to be moving away from the residential market. He said, we've talked very openly, and at the end of the conversation, Klein invited Clancy to be the residential guy. My question is, I think Clancy's got his heart in the right place. I agree 100% with him, and I'm on board with what I see Crestron being able to do in the residential market. But it sure doesn't sound like Randy Klein at the time thought Resi was anything to deal with anymore. We'll have to see what it looks like at CEDIA. It's going to be kind of odd to kind of like poke around at individual booths and see if there's a Crestron processor in there. Yeah,
that's usually like what you see kind of the smaller startup companies doing is partnering up with integration partners or something and demonstrating as sort of a bolt-on type of partnership. So to see Crestron doing that it's interesting, and like you said, I'll be curious to kind of see what that looks like, what booths they're at, what they're showing there, and I don't know. I think that ever since the story broke about Crestron pulling out of CEDIA, you and I we've talked about it a number of times, and I think that to a certain extent, you're right that Crestron is not they're not going to prioritize residential anymore, but I don't think that necessarily their intent was ever to give up on it completely. I think, as I've said from the start, their intent was always, well, we'll take what we can get from it, and maybe you and I are just debating semantics at that point, but
right. No, but I think if you read between the lines of this article, here's another quote: "Residential could be much bigger," he says. It seems like to me that Crestron had written off residential, and Mr. Clancy came in and said, no, I can do better, and said, I can do better with your product. I think this could be a much better thing. But it really does sound like Crestron walked away from it.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and speculate that. I think that they were ready to pull out and ready to walk away completely and let Control 4 take over, let Savant take over, and just walk away from residential, go off and play in commercial where they're making money. But this article seems to kind of outline that and confirm it to me.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting story, and we're not far from CEDIA, so it's not something we'll have to wait too long to watch. But let's get into our interview with Steve here in just a moment. Before we do that, want to send a quick thank you to everybody who's become a patron of the show. If you're not familiar with what that is, go to HomeTech.fm/support, and it's a way that you can become a financial backer of the show. You can do that for as little as $1 a month, and we really appreciate people supporting our efforts to continue bringing weekly episodes of HomeTech. And again, just want to thank everybody who's taken the time to do that, and really encourage listeners, if you find the show valuable and entertaining, then we'd love to have you stop by that website again, HomeTech.fm/support, and find out more about how you can become a patron of the show. So with that said, let's go ahead and get into our interview. Again, we've got Steve Hosterman from Greenlight Control, and we hope you enjoy the conversation. Hey, Steve, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good. How are you guys today?
Doing great. I'm excited to finally have you on. We were joking before the show that this interview has been, almost 2 years in the making. You and I met at CEDIA, not last year, but the year before. And we've been kind of touching base periodically, and I'm glad we finally got an opportunity to get you on the show.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. It definitely has been a long time in the making, but I think it'll be worth it for us and all your listeners.
Great. Well, we're here to talk about Greenlight, and we're going to dive into that in depth in this conversation. But before we jump into that, why don't you give our listeners just a quick personal introduction and maybe talk about some of your background, even maybe going back prior to Greenlight?
Yeah, sure. My name's Steve Hosterman. I'm the CEO of Greenlight Control. We started this company. It was actually started out in our AV company. We've been AV integrators for about 15 years. And we really wanted to have some type of remote monitoring capabilities. Our customers were definitely asking for it. And about 5 years ago, we decided to create it. And so all of us had the background basically in the AV world, and we brought that into the cloud to remotely monitor all of our client systems, and then it just grew from there.
Awesome. Well, I definitely love that, to hear that, current or former integrators are out there putting these software solutions together. I think it offers you a perspective that you just can't really replicate if you've never worked in this industry, and it's full of its own unique challenges. And so I think that's great. I know when I was initially learning about your company, I came across the name TenFlare, and there's a relationship there, but talk to us about that. What is the relationship between TenFlare and Greenlight?
Yeah, so when we first decided to create Greenlight as a company, we decided to have almost a holding company, because we have a million other ideas as well. So TenFlare itself is literally just a holding company. That's where all the ideas probably originate from. And then if it's a feature that's going to be added to one of the existing companies, or if it's going to roll out as a new company on its own, that's really where it begins.
Oh, interesting. So Greenlight is basically part of TenFlare, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's basically like a subsidiary of it.
Okay. Well, let's talk about Greenlight a little bit. What is Greenlight? What's the elevator pitch?
Yeah, so Greenlight's a cloud-based monitoring platform that's going to allow integrators to remotely monitor their systems, any connected device from anywhere in the world. And originally, just as it was for us when we wanted to create Greenlight, it's the number one thing is to eliminate angry clients from calling you and yelling at you, saying you got to drop everything and get out to our house right away. So really, that's it in a nutshell. We have integration with several different control systems, and then we have also recently launched Janus, which is going to open up the platform to straight IP devices and IP networks instead of relying on a control system solely.
Oh, interesting. So I guess that's something I kind of missed. Greenlight runs either on or next to a control system and this is an integrator-based control system like Control4 or Crestron.
Correct. Right now we have drivers for AMX, Control4, Crestron, RTI, and then we have a couple others that were kind of in the works. But there's a lot of the control system companies don't play well with developers, especially outside guys, or somebody that's developing something that at some point they want to provide themselves. So that's why we created Janus. We don't necessarily need a control system to reside on anymore, but that itself they both have their limitations, and you can see that throughout the market, that some people, or actually everybody but Greenlight, resides on a little third-party box that kind of looks at the network from the outside. We are on the inside of the control system, and we can see natively what's going on.
Oh, that's cool. That's very cool. Where are you guys based out of? I've seen a couple of things online, but I think you're in the Midwest, right?
Yeah, definitely. We're kind of actually spread out throughout the world at this point. I'm based out of Kansas City. One of my other partners, Kevin, he headed up Janus. He is also from Kansas City. We actually went to school all the way through elementary, junior high, and high school together. And then the back end kind of dealer site payment, just the display of the information that we're passing along is Eric, and he's in Chicago. And then recently, about 3 months ago, 6 months ago maybe, we brought on a partner that we'd been working with on some other projects, but we thought he would be a good fit, and that is Matt Crump out of Australia. He's the owner of My Device. They do custom development for really any control system out there.
Yeah, I saw that announcement actually, and that looked pretty cool. I wasn't planning to go there next, but since you brought it up, talk about that relationship. I know I'm subscribed to your email list, and I saw an announcement there in the partnership and what you guys were going to be doing together. So tell us about that synergy.
Yeah, it was actually great. We're great friends now, and like I said, we worked together for about 3.5 years just on different things. He actually he had been showcased in an article in CE Pro, and he had created the first two-way driver for Apple TV integration. And I simply just sent him an email. His contact info was kind of in the article, and I sent him a email telling him congratulations, and that was really cool. Nothing else. And he emailed me back, and I think literally we've talked at least every other day since then.
Awesome. Well, yeah, it sounds like an exciting deal. Let's dive into talking about the actual product in the business. And one of the first things that I always like to understand when I'm learning about a new product or service is, who is your ideal customer? How do you guys define your ideal customer?
Yeah, so we have a little bit different look, and I was actually a smaller AV company. I mean, we had about 10 guys, but we only did ultra high-end projects. So we were small, but we had to be fairly mighty. We had to take care of a lot of people, and the higher end the client gets, the more needy they are and the more reluctant they are to give you a couple days to fix something. So I would say our ideal client would be just anybody who's frustrated with service right now. And that would be the first people we'd try to pick up off our list. But then second to that, anybody who wants to give a higher end support experience. Better take, if you go buy a BMW, those guys will buy you dinner. They'll bring you into their office and have drinks for you. But if you go buy like a Toyota, I mean, they're like, yeah, here's the best deal we got.
Right.
See ya.
Right. No, that makes sense. And I think that, service is really obviously a big deal in our industry, and it's becoming an increasingly big deal as we're seeing hardware margins rapidly erode, and we're really having to, as an industry, shift and take service a lot more seriously and figure out, ways that we're going to make that more efficient and provide a higher level of touch to our clients. So I think that's a good answer. We've kind of touched on this, but I'd like, in a couple of different areas, but I'd like to wrap it up a little neater and talk about the overall architecture of the system and just give us a summary of, how the software, what types of hardware, like if I'm looking at Greenlight, what can I expect in terms of just the overall system architecture?
Okay. Yeah. We're more control system centric, I guess, from everybody else. So it requires a control system driver, and that's where all the magic really happens. The dealer can configure it just in any programming that they're already used to, so they really don't have any new learning curve. They configure it for the devices that they want to monitor, and that can be IP devices, it can be IOs, lamp hours, anything that's going to give you two-way feedback. So if your projector lamp hours get past 1,500 hours, you could have a device that's monitoring that, and it would trigger an error if it would go over that. So really it's unlimited of what we can monitor. And since we do reside on the control system, kind of like I was saying earlier, you can be outside the control system on a network watching the touch panel and watching the control processor, and they might both be online. But that doesn't mean that the control system itself is talking to that touch panel. So we see that as the control system sees it. And everybody else is just kind of guessing, well, it looks like it's on the network and it must be talking to the control system.
Right. That gives you a little more granularity of what you're able to see and the events that you're able to take action on. Let's talk a little bit about what control systems you guys support. I think you went over them briefly there, but I just kind of want to make sure that we do cover it. I know you said Crestron.
Yes, so we have, and all the drivers are free. If the dealer signs up, they can log in at our site and then download any of these. And it would be AMX, Control 4, Crestron, and RTI currently.
And those are just standard drivers. Like if I'm a Control 4 dealer, I just drag and drop the driver in and pop in a few things probably for credentials and call it a day, right?
Correct. You have to give a unique ID as a dealer. It's the API key. That's what tells our server what control system the system or what control system belongs to what dealer.
Right. So we talked about the Janus piece too, and that's basically going to be. It sounds like from your description earlier, it's a piece of hardware that sits outside of the control system and just kind of monitors all of the rest of the IP network. Is that right?
Yes. So we originally wanted to build Greenlight where there was going to be no hardware cost, and unfortunately the requests that we get and the stuff that we wanted to add, the control systems are limited. So we had to go outside that, but we wanted to keep the core value of Greenlight running on the control system so we can get the native feedback like we were talking about a minute ago. So Janus is going to sit on the network, and it's going to kind of overlook everything that's on the network. So you could run internet speed test. I mean, dealers will get that call from their clients all the time. My Apple TV is slow. It's your network. Come fix this now. Well, a dealer can simply run an action to trigger that speed test and quickly know that it's probably on the ISP instead of their equipment. They can also remotely scan the networks, and all these are IP-based tools to help them troubleshoot, just take that troubleshooting to the next level, again, reducing an on-site truck roll.
Right. So I guess my question is, outside of the driver that you provide for Greenlight, what does the Janus, I guess, give you? It sounds like speed test is one of them, but what else does the Janus product give you for monitoring and troubleshooting that the driver's not?
Right. So we can, like I said, we can remotely scan networks. So any device that's on the network, you can get detailed information. What's the IP address? Is it online? Is it offline? What's the host name? What's the MAC address? Any of that information that's going to help you troubleshoot later. And sometimes it's not necessarily for troubleshooting. I don't know how many times as an AV installer I had to call tech support without going on site because the customer wasn't home or whatever. And I would just call tech support first, and they say, okay, well, what's the serial number? Like, I don't know. What's the MAC address? I don't know.
Right.
Well, this way, I don't know how many times I was like, oh, hold on, I got that information. And I would just go into Greenlight, and you would be able to tell them, and then you could get an advanced replacement or whatever without having to go on site first, waste that trip, then wait on the part to come in. It was just it would reduce it down to just one trip, and that's physically going out and replacing the hardware.
Can Janus be used as like a standalone monitoring solution? If I had a system, let's say, like I'm a Savant dealer, we do a lot with Savant, and so I noticed currently you didn't list a driver for them, and we can get into if that's coming specifically. But I'm curious with the Janus piece, is that kind of a standalone? If I wanted to put that on the network and at least use the Greenlight platform to do some monitoring of the network, or is having Greenlight embedded on a local processor a requirement to use Janus?
No, we're actually we've done a soft release of Janus as standalone, and what that does is you'll install the Janus device on the network, do a full system scan, and it takes all of those devices that were scanned and found with all their information and automatically dumps them into the Greenlight device tab. So you'll be able to monitor all of those, get notifications, adjust notifications, or turn off notifications, whatever. And that's just from scanning the entire network.
Got it. And then, I mentioned Savant, and I know in particular, that's just one piece. There's a lot of control systems out there, but I know there are a lot of Savant dealers out there. Are you guys looking at them and talks with them? Is there anything you can tell us about that?
We have reached out to them, and we've had several requests from dealers with that specifically, and they have not been that great on working with, unfortunately. We do have the power, especially with Matt in-house, to do it, but there's a limitation with Savant, and we don't have a way as a third-party developer to close off our security, basically, our deadbolt. So anybody that would have access to that driver would kind of see all of that, and it could be used in the wrong way. So we're trying to figure that out. But so Janus by itself could do that. The only thing you're going to lose is all the actions that a Savant system itself is capable of. And then you wouldn't be able to get that full two-way status, the connected state, the projector hours, and stuff like that. So, and Elan's the same way. We've reached out to them several times, and they're a little bit delayed on their SDK for sure. But so at some point we would like to directly integrate with them, but I think Janus is going to give us the capability of kind of picking those systems off as well.
Yeah. Well, at least you'll be, at the very least, you'll be able to see if things are staying connected on the network. And that's, I would say, what a lot of your competition is giving us. So Janus as a standalone piece, I think, at least gets you up to the level that everyone else is able to. And I don't know of anybody who's got that integration with Savant or Elan, like you mentioned. So great points there. I'm curious about, as we're evaluating some of these platforms in our business and taking a look at them, one of the big things that I'm always thinking about is the notifications and how much ability do I have to go in there and customize the notifications. I know some of the platforms will give you the ability to say, well, during business hours, notify these people, and during off hours, notify those people, and you can set different levels and things like that. So how are you guys approaching notifications, and are you giving your users the ability to customize those?
Definitely. And that's notifications always just kind of drove me crazy. And I learned really, really fast when we originally created Greenlight. I mean, you put 40 to 50 systems on this, and the chances of you getting a notification every couple minutes is pretty high. So there was so many devices that would go offline for like a minute or 2 minutes that I would get an email, and then a minute later I would get it saying it was back online. Well, your brain just kind of adapts automatically, and it just starts ignoring notifications. Well, then I started getting calls from clients again. I'm like, man, how did I miss that? And you just stop looking when you're getting, 300 or however many, 100 notifications per day. So I was actually driving down the road listening to some business radio thing, and this guy got on there talking about calm technology. And I was like, no, that's kind of weird. And but he talked about you get notified with Facebook and text message and Snapchat, and the human brain cannot handle all of these notifications. So you're going to miss something. So his goal is to go out and try to figure out the best way to notify people, only tell people when something's important, when it's not important. So that kind of gave us the idea. We call them calm reports. And what that does, at most, you're going to get, no matter how many systems you have, you're only going to get 24 emails a day if you turn calm reporting on. And basically it'll send you a single email every hour if there was any errors in the past 60 minutes. And some dealers first say, oh, well, what if my customer finds out? They're not going to find out. Most customers don't ever know that there's a problem. As long as you fix it within 3 to 4 hours, chances are they're not going to know. The systems don't break when they sit down to watch TV. It breaks hours before when there was some update in the middle of the night, or your ISP sent some update to the cable box or whatever. And it just seems the calm reporting, personally, it helped me a lot. And I know a lot of the dealers are using it. But we also left in you can delay notifications. So if you do have a kind of rogue device that you can't figure it out and it works fine, but it does go offline every 3 minutes or something and kind of reconnects, you could delay the notifications where you wouldn't get a notification until like 3.5 minutes or something. And that helps alleviate those if you wanted to not utilize the calm reporting feature.
I need calm reporting for my email.
Right, exactly.
I like it.
Yeah, when we first started, that was kind of the joke. I was like, man, I can't wait. Because in the beginning, we were so excited. A dealer would sign up and then he would buy a license or whatever. I was like, man, I can't wait till we need calm reporting for dealers buying licenses.
Right.
Yeah, after 6 months, you like shut all those emails off. You're like, yeah, well, that's great. Another dealer came online.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, I completely understand that. I kind of lose interest if there's like 3 or 4, updates that come through. Three or four emails will come through, and I may see them on my phone screen, but at 6 more notifications come in, and the important one gets buried in those 3 or 4. So, yeah, I can totally see getting kind of, especially when you have multiple systems running and there's multiple things going on. One power outage in a town with 4 or 5 systems can cause you a bunch of notifications, and you may miss that important needle in the haystack if everything's going off.
Yeah, and we even added a thing you can. And this is device specific. So if there was a really, really critical device that you wanted to make sure, you can repeat the error notification every hour just in case you missed it. And all these things, it's because we use this in the real life. And everybody who tested Greenlight, especially in the beginning, was an entry level tech, because I didn't want as the owner of the AV company, I didn't want to run this. I didn't want to have to understand or explain a whole bunch of stuff to any new technician coming in. This way, anybody that was assigned to that job can understand Greenlight. You don't have to have an IT background. You don't have to have a management background. Anybody can look at Greenlight and just understand it. So it might be limited on some of the features, but to know when something's broke and what you need to do to fix it, we give you that information.
Cool. Very cool. And I guess all that information, we've kind of danced around it a little bit here, but all that information gets aggregated into, I'm guessing, like a web app, like online. Is that like a dashboard type thing? Is that what we're?
Yeah, every dealer will have their own dashboard. You'll have a map that'll pin all the systems, and it'll identify them with green if they're okay, red if the whole system's offline, yellow if there's any errors. So it also gives you a list, but the dashboard's really nice because you can quickly look at it and anybody can understand a map picture. And so even with that, I remember like out of the blue, I would get like 5 systems offline. Well, I'd look at the map, they're all in the same street or cul-de-sac, and you would know that the ISP must have had a fiber line cut, or they're doing work in that neighborhood or whatever.
Right, that makes sense. Is there an app, like an iOS app, or a like an Android app?
Yeah, we have struggled with that, and we do get that asked a lot. But our website, the dashboard itself, is mobile friendly, and since everything is live when you're monitoring it, having an app, it's not really going to gain us anything at this point, because you can't cache old data that's not necessary. So all it would really be running, and that's what most of these guys are doing, is it's a web app in a wrapper of an app. And it just doesn't make sense for us right now.
Right.
We do have some other stuff coming up, and we can talk about that later, that's going to require an app. But for now, it's just mobile website and then our dashboard online.
Got it. That makes sense. So we've talked a lot about the notifications and what sort of devices the system is running on and monitoring, but really we got to get to the critical point is what do you do with this information, and how can you use this information to proactively solve issues? So presumably you guys are integrated with third-party like power conditioners, I would assume. Is that correct?
Well, that's what makes, to me, in my opinion, this is what makes Greenlight absolutely the best. So Greenlight itself is part of the control system. So anything that the control system already has a driver for, can open and close an I/O or whatever, it can become a Greenlight action because a control system is capable of that. So like for RTI example, you'll just build a whole bunch of system macros, and they could be for PDUs. You might have one oversee unit, you might have one Blue Bolt unit, and this is all on the same job. Or you might need to power toggle the IR on a cable box, turn on a TV, lower a screen, whatever would help you troubleshoot. You can have those as actions on Greenlight and trigger those from anywhere. So all the other guys, if they don't have written drivers for their proprietary platform, then you can't control it, period. So I know some of the other companies, they pick on the big ones, Oversee, Panamax, APC, whatever. But what happens when you have a digital logger, or this was an older job and it's got an older PDU that doesn't have a driver, or it's serial controlled, or I guess it could be IR controlled. It doesn't matter. Anybody can develop an app or develop a driver for any of the control systems, and you can pick any of those actions that the driver is capable of. So it's open. Greenlight is as open as the control system itself, and the dealer's responsible for doing that.
That makes a lot of sense, and that's, I think, a great way to illustrate that is you could basically do anything the control system can do. So if you could program a remote to power cycle a cable box, then you can program Greenlight to do it. I think that really drives the point home. And I hadn't thought about it at that level of detail, but I think it's a clear differentiator. So I think that's pretty neat. What about PoE switches? I guess it would be kind of the same answer, but I know that's a big thing if you're monitoring the health of a network and you've got a wireless access point that maybe is acting funny and you want to give that thing a reboot, what's your guys' approach to that?
So I know there's drivers out there for some of the package switches, and it does allow you to reboot the ports. AMX, and by the way, I was an AMX dealer for 15 years or whatever, so I know they sell a PoE switch that they already have a module for, and it can give you any control of that PoE switch that you want. So you could then create an action based on any of those commands. So if it's out there and controllable, either we could develop on it or they could develop on it. And that's something else with Matt. We're leaving it isolated from Greenlight because I really don't want to get into driver development for customers. But if we do have maybe Control 4 got a little lazy on their Sony whatever projector and it doesn't have lamp hours, well, they can contact my device and he could finish that development or write a little driver that's all its job is to connect to that Sony projector and get the lamp hours, or that PDU that's not even in the United States that I've never heard of. He could develop that.
Right. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Well, let's get to, one of the big things that we haven't touched on, and that is pricing. How does your guys' pricing model work?
Right. We offer Greenlight for $8 per month per system, and that's just a license that's on the Greenlight website. We're kind of like you buy minutes like on a cell phone. So you would buy just bundles of licenses, and every system that came online would snag a license. So it's $8 a month for Greenlight. And then if you want to add Janus to any of those systems, it's $8 a month. And then when we officially launch Janus standalone, that'll be $8 a month by itself. So I know it's kind of complicated, but we try to we want to get the price down as much as possible so a dealer can add it to every system, especially that we don't want them leaving out the little systems, or some dealers might even leave out the big systems. I don't know. But every job that could potentially fail, we want to have Greenlight. And that's why we offer enterprise licensing. And that offers different dealers, depending on what level they're at, how many licenses they're going to buy, how much they promote it. We offer anywhere from 5% discount to 30% discount.
All right, sounds good. I like the idea of being able to put something like this on every single project without incurring, hardware costs, or some systems out there, they have a hardware cost and then they have a licensing for, month or yearly service after that. This is great because I can just any system I put a control system in, which is most of them, I can pop this in and at least have a bird's eye view of what's going on inside the house. If I didn't have a control system, some of the other products might make sense too. But that's where I guess the Janus piece comes in. So you're covering all bases there.
Right. Yeah. And everything that we do it has to be requested multiple times from different dealers. We want to make sure it's not just a one-off. But yeah, so some dealers, they might install a lot of control systems, but they might also just do security or security camera installs. So that's kind of another reason Janus kind of started coming into play. They wanted to be able to monitor all of their jobs. So Janus standalone would monitor a DVR system or just an alarm system. And then they could still monitor everything else with Greenlight when they do those types of jobs.
Very cool. So we're kind of running short on our time here, and I kind of want to zoom out and ask a big picture question here. How important do you think this remote, monitoring and management technology is going to be in the future of, home tech in general?
If it's not on every dealer's radar right now, they really need to start looking at it, because once Apple and Google and all these big players really start to dig in, and I mean, even SmartThings has kind of came out of nowhere, and it's pretty impressive the stuff that they're doing. What is going to differentiate a custom integrator from Apple? And the only thing I can think of, yeah, the speakers might be a little bit better. It might be a little bit more custom, blah, blah, blah. But on Super Bowl Sunday, when a client system fails, do they want to be on hold with Apple tech support or Google tech support for 4 hours while they're missing the game? Or do they want to rely on white glove support from X AV company, and they didn't even know there was a problem? It was fixed in the middle of the night or that morning, and they think their system is great.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it's a really exciting space to watch. It's definitely one that Seth and I keep a really close eye on, and enjoyed learning about Greenlight, and appreciate you coming on. As we wrap up here, I'm curious to know what's next for you guys as a company. What are you getting excited about right now?
So Janus gives us a platform that we can do a lot of different things with, and it was kind of known when we started developing it, but it's more apparent now. And that is typically the standard control system today is on the wrong side of the firewall, and all of these new consumer, really popular products are in the cloud, and most of the control systems really have to change what they're doing in order to communicate. Well, we already have that communication, especially with Janus. And we've already started. We have a lot of beta sites out there, but we want a platform. One, Greenlight would be treated kind of like if this, then that. And you can take an action and make it do anything that you want based on a variable of something else that's already in the cloud. But also what I got tired of, and it just drove me nuts, especially as an AV guy, every time a new device came out, I'd say, hey, can we control that? Well, yeah, you can control that, but we got to develop a driver for AMX, and then you got to do one for RTI, and you got whatever. We have already, like I said, we have some beta sites out there with generic drivers that were really simple to develop for all the control systems. Then all the development is in the cloud. So it's kind of a push and pull generic driver, but any of the Internet of Things that are in the cloud just have to be developed one time and can work with any of these control systems. So that's kind of the future. We'll always have the remote monitoring capabilities, but we want to make it better. I remember having to tell, as an AMX installer, one of my best customers, I remember when the Nest thermostat first came out, and he said, I want to control that. Well, it took AMX 3 years to develop a driver for that. There's no need for that. And until these AV companies or the integration companies start playing well with these consumer products like Ring doorbells and whatever else you can think of, Nest thermostats, and make easy integration, they're gonna go behind. Same thing with Amazon Echo. So
Right. Well, great answer. Really, again, appreciate you taking the time to come on. I really enjoyed the conversation. And if our listeners wanted to find out more or connect with you personally, what would be the best way for them to do that?
The easiest thing would be to go to our website. It's greenlightcontrol.com, or they can email me at steve@tenflare.com, and that's tenflare.com. And yeah, feel free to reach out to me at any point. I'm really still a big part of the company, and I like to talk to every dealer that signs up and keep a relationship, because that's kind of why everything keeps moving forward.
Very cool. Well, Steve, I want to thank you again for coming on the show and letting us understand a little bit more about Greenlight and helping me understand a little bit more about what Janus is going to be here in the future. Really appreciate your time. With that, we'll let you go. Thanks very much.
All right, I appreciate it. Have a great night.